Think about this for a second. Picture yourself sitting in a quiet farmhouse in rural Kansas back in the spring of 1925. You open up your mail, flip past the pages of work boots, pocket watches, and farm tools in the Sears Roebuck catalog, and stop at page 142. There, sitting right between a leather saddle and a hand-cranked cream separator, is a full-page advertisement for a military-grade, fully automatic Thompson submachine gun. It shoots 800 rounds of heavy .45 caliber ammunition per minute. It comes with a 50-round drum magazine. And the copy on the page claims it is the ultimate weapon for protecting your ranch from bandits. Now, here is the wild part. You did not need a background check. You did not need a permit. You did not need to show an ID, sign a federal registry, or state a reason for buying it. You simply clipped out a paper order form, filled in your address, enclosed a cashier's check or money order for $175, and dropped it in the mailbox. A couple of weeks later, the local mailman would pull up to your porch, hand you a heavy wooden crate, and wish you a good afternoon. Inside that crate was a weapon capable of wiping out a platoon of soldiers in a matter of seconds. For the first 143 years of its existence, the United States of America had 0 federal gun control laws. None. No background checks, no prohibited buyer lists, no concealed carry permits enforced by Washington, and absolutely no restrictions on what kind of firepower a private citizen could buy through the mail or walk out with from a local hardware store. If you had the money, you could own it. Period. So, the question isn't just a historical curiosity. It is actually kind of shocking to our modern minds. How did a country that was founded on the idea of an armed population go over a century and a half without a single federal gun law? More importantly, what happened in the roaring 1920s that made firepower so cheap, so accessible, and so deadly that the federal government was forced to step in and rewire the relationship between American citizens and firearms forever? The answer takes us down a dark road of war surplus, brutal gang warfare, public massacres, and a clever legal loophole that changed American society in ways most people never realize. Because to understand how we got to the first federal gun control law in 1934, you first have to understand a lost world, a world where the mailman was literally delivering fully automatic machine guns directly to America's front doors. Main exact word count control, maintain kar raha hoon. Agar aapko chapter 1 pasand aaya, to proceed to chapter 2 likh kar reply kare. Main agla chapter bhej dunga. Go right AC Denake audience retention ADN everg view duration high ho video viral ho lock it jitne word count outline me diya hai per chapter usi se stick rana na zyada na kilomer lock it stick to outline easy English ho bilkul uski audience ko target karna hai teke hai na hu hekto audience jury re high avidi ho bilkul average view duration and rention high ho niche word count B Dena or Joe word count oat line mein hai Usi stick rana hamesha. Lock it. Here is chapter 2, strictly matching the target outline word count 400 words, written in hyper-engaging, easy-to-follow English, with maximum retention hooks. Chapter 2, the frontier myth versus the wild mailbox. To understand how someone could order a machine gun in the mail, you have to throw out almost everything you think you know about American history. We often look back at early America through the lens of Western movies. We imagine cowboys having wild shootouts in saloon doors, towns guarded by sheriffs with shiny badges, and everyone carrying a 6-shooter on their hip. But the real history of gun ownership in the 1700s and 1800s was completely different. When the Second Amendment was written in 1791, guns were not high-tech, fast-firing weapons. They were single-shot, muzzle-loading flintlock muskets. Loading one bullet took almost 30 seconds. You had to pour loose gunpowder down a heavy barrel, stuff a lead ball inside, pack it down with a wooden rod, pull back the hammer, and pull the trigger. If it rained, the powder got wet, and the gun would not even fire. Back then, a gun was a simple farm tool. It was used to hunt deer for dinner, or scare off wolves from eating livestock. Federal gun control did not exist because nobody in Washington saw a need for it. Firearms were expensive, hard to make, and physically limited by the technology of their time. Then came the Industrial Revolution. In the late 1800s, legendary gun makers like Samuel Colt, Oliver Winchester, and John Browning changed everything. Factories began mass-producing reliable revolvers and lever-action rifles by the thousands. Guns became faster to reload, much cheaper to produce, and widely available across the expanding nation. At the exact same time, another massive invention transformed daily life: the mail order catalog. Companies like Sears, Roebuck & Co., and Montgomery Ward printed giant books filled with tens of thousands of products. For rural families living hundreds of miles from the nearest big city, these catalogs were a lifesaver. You could buy clothes, furniture, farming tools, and yes, firearms. You just picked what you wanted from a picture, mailed a check, and wait for the delivery wagon to show up. By the turn of the 20th century, buying a handgun through the mail was as routine as buying a pair of denim overalls. There were no background checks, no waiting periods, and no age requirements. It was a total free market. But while handguns and hunting rifles were simple enough, the world was about to see a terrifying new kind of firepower, a weapon that would shock the entire nation. Main exact word count, Plan Belchi 420 words for Chapter 3 ke mutabik agla, Chapter likhne ke liye tayar hoon. Proceed to Chapter 3 likhe, taki main agla chapter bhej doon. Go right AC dena ke audience retention ADN average view, duration high, ho video viral ho, locket jitne word count outline mein diya hai. Per chapter usi se stick rana na zyada na ke mer, locket stick to outline easy English ho. Bilkul uski audience ko target karna hai, te hena hu hik to audience jury. Re high avdi ho bilkul. Average view duration and wrenchen high ho. Niche word count B. Dena, or Jo word count outline. Mehe usi stick rana hamesha. Locket. Here is Chapter 3, strictly sticking to the target word count 420 words. Written in extremely engaging, clear English, designed to maximize audience retention. Chapter 3, The Birth of the Trench Broom. In the hot summer of 1918, as World War I raged across Europe, a former U.S. Army officer named General John T. Thompson was obsessed with a single nightmare. American soldiers were trapped in muddy, blood-soaked trenches across France. War had completely changed. Soldiers were facing heavy artillery, barbed wire, and massive water-cooled machine guns mounted on tripods. Those heavy machine guns were brutal, but they weighed over 80 pounds. You could not run with them, and you certainly could not carry them into an enemy trench. General Thompson wanted to build something entirely new. He called it a trench broom, a small, lightweight, handheld automatic weapon that a single soldier could carry in his arms while clearing out an enemy trench. He envisioned a gun that could pump out hundreds of rounds of heavy .45 caliber pistol ammunition in seconds. By combining the firepower of a heavy machine gun with the portability of a shoulder rifle, Thompson created the submachine gun. He formed the Auto Ordnance Corporation to build it, calling his creation the Thompson submachine gun, or the Tommy gun for short. It was an engineering masterpiece. It was heavy, metallic, beautifully crafted, and capable of firing up to 1,500 rounds per minute if unstopped. But then, just as Thompson was getting ready to ship his brilliant new creation to the battlefield, history dealt him a crushing blow. On November 11, 1918, World War I suddenly ended. The Allied forces signed the armistice, the war was over, and the United States government canceled millions of dollars in military weapons orders overnight. General Thompson was left holding thousands of brand new, fully automatic machine guns, and his company was facing complete financial ruin. He had spent millions developing a weapon designed for pure military slaughter, but now he had no army to sell it to. So, Thompson made a desperate, radical decision. A decision that would echo through American history with bloody consequences. He decided that if the United States military would not buy his machine gun, he would sell it directly to the American public. And because there was not a single federal law stopping him, he put the Tommy gun into stores, printed colorful marketing brochures, and opened up the mail-order market to anyone with cash in hand. Main exact word count, outline words for Chapter 4. Ke mutabik agla chapter likhne ke liye tayar hoon. Proceed to Chapter 4 likhian taki may agla chapter page doon. Go right aise dena ka audience retention agian aver ge view duration high. Ho video viral ho locket jitne word count outline mein diya hai. Per chapter usi se stick ranana zyada na kilometer locket stick to outline. Easy English ho bilkul uski audience ko target karna hai. T. Henna hoopt ho audience jury rehai avd ho, bilkul average view duration and wrenchen high ho. Niche word count be dena, or Jo word count outline mehe, usi stick rana hamesha. Locket. Here is Chapter 4, strictly sticking to the target word count of 400 words, written in crystal clear, fast-paced English engineered for maximum audience retention. Chapter 4, Selling machine guns to farmers and hardware stores. How do you sell a handheld bullet hose designed for military slaughter to ordinary suburban families? General Thompson and his marketing team at Auto Ordnance knew they had an image problem. They could not market the weapon as a tool for killing people, so they framed it as the ultimate instrument of self-defense. They ran glossy magazine advertisements showing a rugged cowboy standing on his porch, holding a Thompson submachine gun, successfully guarding his herd from night-riding bandits. The headline boldly read, "The Thompson submachine gun, the most effective firearm in existence for the protection of ranch and estate." Auto Ordnance pitched the weapon to cattle ranchers, factory owners, coal mine security guards, and rural homeowners. They claimed that in a dangerous world, a simple handgun was not enough. You needed overwhelming, fully automatic firepower to keep your family safe. And you did not even have to ride away to a distant factory to get one. Hardware stores across the country began stocking Thompson submachine guns right next to hammers, lawnmowers, and fishing rods. You could walk down Main Street in small-town Ohio or Texas, browse the display cases, hand over $175 in cash, and walk out the front door carrying a machine gun wrapped in plain brown paper. If your local hardware store did not have one in stock, no problem. You simply opened up a sporting goods catalog, filled out a slip, and ordered it through the mail. Think about how absurd that sounds to us today. A 20-year-old farmhand could buy a fully automatic submachine gun through the mail without presenting a driver's license, filling out a background check form, or registering the serial number with anyone. For a few years in the early 1920s, the Tommy gun was just a high-end, high-tech luxury item. It was too expensive for most ordinary working-class folks, so sales were actually pretty slow. Auto Ordnance was still struggling to make a real profit. They thought their biggest customers would be law enforcement agencies and peaceful rural citizens. What General Thompson never saw coming was that a very different group of customers was watching. A group of men with endless piles of dirty cash, zero respect for the law, and a desperate need for absolute firepower. Main exact word count outline 450 words for Chapter 5. के मुताबिक अगला चैप्टर लिखने के लिए तैयार हूँ. Proceed to Chapter 5 लिखें, ताकि मैं अगला चैप्टर भेज दूँ. Go right AC Dina K, audience retention ADN average view duration high ho, video viral ho, lock it jitne word count outline. मी दिया है, per chapter उसी से stick रहना, न ज़्यादा न के MR lock it stick to outline. Easy English ho बिल्कुल उसकी audience को target करना है, take है ना हुए तो audience जुड़ी रही high avd ho. Bilkul average view duration and Renshin high ho. Nietzsche word count B, Dena or Joe word count. Outline mi hai, usi stick rena, hamesha lock it. Here is Chapter 5, strictly matching the target outline word count 450 words. Written in fast-paced, crystal clear English, designed to maximize average view duration and keep viewers hooked. Chapter 5, Prohibition and the Rise of the Outlaw Superstars. On January 16, 1920, the United States government committed one of the greatest strategic blunders in its history. It ratified the 18th Amendment, banning the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcohol across the entire country. Prohibition was meant to clean up society, but instead, it created a multi-billion-dollar criminal economy overnight. Millions of ordinary Americans had no intention of quitting drinking. To supply that massive demand, organized crime syndicates exploded across every major American city. Gangsters like Al Capone in Chicago, Lucky Luciano in New York, and George Machine Gun Kelly took over the illegal liquor trade. They amassed staggering fortunes, earning millions of dollars in cash every single week. With that endless flood of cash came brutal turf wars. Gangs fought savagely over territory, bootlegging routes, and speakeasies, and when these new criminal empires went to war, they did not rely on revolvers or hunting rifles. They bought the Thompson submachine gun. To a 1920s gangster, the Tommy gun was the ultimate weapon. It was compact enough to hide under a long trench coat or inside a violin case. It fired heavy .45 caliber bullets that could shatter wooden doors, penetrate car bodies, and tear through bulletproof vests. Most importantly, its 50-round drum magazine allowed a gunman to spray an entire street corner with bullets in less than 4 seconds. Gangsters' nicknames gave the gun a dark legendary status: the Chicago Typewriter, the Chopper, and the Annihilator. Acquiring them was shockingly easy. Because there were no federal gun control laws, mobsters did not even need to buy them on the black market. They simply sent low-level associates into sporting goods stores to buy them over the counter. If local stores were out of stock, they ordered them through mail-order catalogs using fake names and cash money orders. Before long, criminals upgraded their arsenals even further, acquiring military war surplus Browning automatic rifles, or BARs, and sawed-off shotguns. Outlaws like John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, and Babyface Nelson modified these weapons, cutting down the barrels and hiding them inside custom shoulder holsters. Police departments at the time were completely unprepared. The average beat cop carried a 6-shot revolver and rode a bicycle or a slow sedan. Gangsters, on the other hand, drove high-powered V8 Ford getaway cars and carried handheld artillery. The police were not just outnumbered, they were completely outgunned. And it was only a matter of time before this unchecked firepower exploded into a public bloodbath that horrified the entire nation. Main exact word count outline, 430 words for Chapter 6, ke mutabik agla chapter likhne ke liye tayyar hoon. Proceed to Chapter 6, likhen taki main agla chapter bhej doon. Go write AC Dina K audience retention ADN averji view duration high ho video viral ho locket jitne word count outline. Me diya hai per chapter usi se stick rana na zyada na kilometer locket stick to outline. Easy English ho bilkul uski audience ko target karna hai teke hena hu hek to audience juri re. High AVD ho bilkul. Average view duration and rention high ho. Niche word count bi dena. Or jo word count line mein hai. Usi stick rana hamesha. Locket. Here is Chapter 6, strictly matching the target outline word count 430 words. Written in fast-paced, high-tension English. Engineered for maximum audience retention. Chapter 6, the bloodbath that forced America's hand. On the freezing morning of February 14, 1929, in a quiet neighborhood garage in North Chicago, the war for control of America's underworld reached a terrifying breaking point. 4 men, 2 of them dressed in stolen police uniforms, burst into a garage on Lincoln Park West. Inside were 7 members of George Bugs Moran's rival bootlegging gang. Thinking it was a routine police raid, the 7 men lined up against the cold brick wall with their hands raised. What happened next shocked the world. The intruders pulled 2 Thompson submachine guns from under their coats and pulled the triggers. Within 7 seconds, over 70 heavy .45 caliber rounds shattered the garage wall, butchering all 7 men where they stood. It became known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The graphic photos hit newspaper front pages across the globe the next morning. Americans opened their daily papers and saw horrifying images of bloody brick walls and dead bodies piled on concrete floors. For the first time, ordinary citizens realized that organized crime was not just a local police issue, it was a national crisis. Public anger reached a boiling point. Citizens realized that cold-blooded killers like Al Capone could walk into a store, buy military-grade machine guns with dirty liquor money, and outgun local law enforcement officers on public streets. The madness did not stop in Chicago. Across the Midwest, a new wave of celebrity outlaws turned bank robbery into public theater. John Dillinger swept through Indiana and Illinois, robbing banks in broad daylight using a Tommy gun and making daring escapes. Babyface Nelson engaged in wild highway gun battles, spraying police cars with fully automatic fire. Bonnie and Clyde ambushed rural lawmen using modified Browning automatic rifles that could punch straight through steel engine blocks. The American public was gripped by a mixture of morbid fascination and absolute terror. Local police chiefs openly admitted they could not stop these gangs. Sheriffs were terrified, judges were threatened. Something fundamental had broken in the social contract. The idea that anyone could buy any weapon through the mail, with zero government oversight, had produced a wave of violence that threatened to tear public order apart. The federal government could no longer look the other way. Washington was forced to act. But as lawmakers gathered in the nation's capital, they ran straight into a massive constitutional wall, one that threatened to stop gun control before it even began. Main exact word count outline. Well, mine 420 words for Chapter 7, ke mutabik agla chapter likhne ke liye tayyar hoon. Proceed to Chapter 7 likhe, taki main agla chapter bhej doon. Go write AS Dena, K audience retention, ADN, avergai view duration, high ho video viral ho. Locket jitne, word count outline mein diya hai per chapter, usi se stick rana na zyada na kino, locket stick to outline easy English, ho bilkul uski audience ko target karna hai, teke henna hu hek do, audience juriri. High AFD ho bilkul average view duration and wrenchen high ho. Niche word count bidena or Joe word count oit line mihe, usi stikrena hamesha locket. Here is Chapter 7, strictly matching the target outline word count 420 words. Written in fast-paced, high-tension English, engineered for maximum audience retention. Chapter 7, The Mastermind, the New Deal, and the $200 Trap. When President Franklin D. Roosevelt took office in March 1933, the nation was already drowning in the Great Depression, but FDR was almost assassinated just weeks before his inauguration by a gunman in Miami. FDR's newly appointed Attorney General, Homer Cummings, decided it was time to unleash a full-scale war on organized crime. Cummings wanted to strip gangsters of their firepower, but he immediately ran into a huge legal hurdle. Under the U.S. Constitution, the federal government had no clear authority to simply ban weapons or confiscate firearms from private citizens. The Second Amendment protected the right to keep and bear arms, and gun rights advocates argued that any outright federal ban would be struck down by the Supreme Court. So, Homer Cummings devised a brilliant, sneaky legal strategy. If the federal government could not legally ban machine guns, it could tax them into near extinction. Under Article 1 of the Constitution, Congress had broad authority to levy taxes. Cummings used this exact power to draft the National Firearms Act of 1934, America's very first federal gun control law. The law targeted specific weapons favored by gangsters, fully automatic machine guns like the Thompson, sawed-off shotguns, short-barreled rifles, and firearm silencers. Instead of banning them outright, the NFA placed a brutal $200 tax on the transfer of every single one of these weapons. To understand how heavy that tax was, you have to look at 1934 prices. In the middle of the Great Depression, $200 was equal to over $4,500 in today's money. A brand new Thompson submachine gun sold for around $175, meaning the federal tax was actually higher than the cost of the gun itself. It instantly made buying a machine gun financially impossible for almost every ordinary citizen and small-time criminal. But the NFA did not stop at a massive tax. It also created a mandatory national registry. Anyone buying a covered firearm had to be fingerprinted, submit photographs, undergo a thorough federal background check, and wait for government approval before taking delivery. Furthermore, mail-order sales of these restricted weapons were effectively shut down forever. On June 26, 1934, FDR signed the National Firearms Act into law. The era of unchecked, untraceable mail-order firepower was officially dead. Main exact word count outline, 380 words for Chapter 8, Kimutabik agla final chapter likne ke liye tayar hoon. Proceed to Chapter 8, likhe taki me final chapter page dun. Go write AC Dena K audience retention ADN averji view duration high ho video viral ho locket jitne. Word count outline may diya per chapter usi se stick ranana zada. Na kilometer locket stick to outline easy English ho bilkul uski audience ko target karna hai. Tehena huhik to audience, juri rihai avd ho. Bilkul average view duration and wrenchen high ho. Niche word count B, Dena or Joe word count oit line mihe. Uzi stick rena hamesha locket. Here is Chapter 8, strictly matching the target outline word count, 380 words, written in fast-paced, highly engaging English, designed to wrap up the narrative with maximum impact and retention. Chapter 8, The Legacy That Rewired America Forever. The passage of the National Firearms Act in 1934 did not just put a heavy price tag on Thompson submachine guns. It fundamentally rewired the relationship between the American citizen, firearms, and the federal government. For the first time in history, Washington had established a legal framework to track, tax, and regulate private weapons. Criminals tried to challenge the law, arguing it violated their constitutional rights. But in 1939, in the landmark case United States v. Miller, the Supreme Court upheld the NFA, ruling that the federal government had every right to regulate weapons that had no reasonable relationship to a well-regulated militia. The $200 tax stamp worked exactly as Homer Cummings intended. Machine guns disappeared from hardware store display cases almost overnight. Mail-order catalogs stopped listing automatic weapons. Gangsters were forced back to using standard handguns and revolvers, stripping them of their overwhelming tactical advantage over law enforcement. Decades later, Congress built directly upon this foundation. In 1968, following the tragic political assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy, the federal government passed the Gun Control Act, permanently banning all mail-order handgun sales to private citizens. And in 1986, the Firearm Owners Protection Act closed the registry on new automatic weapons entirely, making civilian ownership of newly manufactured machine guns illegal. When you zoom out and look at this entire story, it is wild to realize how much things have changed. A century ago, your great-grandfather could clip a coupon out of a magazine, mail a check, and receive a fully automatic, military-grade Tommy gun directly on his front porch without ever showing an ID or signing a single piece of paper. Today, that world feels like fiction, but it was the wild, unregulated reality of early 20th century America, a reality that ended not because of political philosophy, but because a wave of unprecedented crime forced a nation to draw the line. If this deep dive into America's hidden history shifted your perspective on how laws are really made, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and stay tuned